بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابة رضوان الله تعالى عليهم أجمعين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. Inshallah, the plan today is to finish the book of prayer. So what we've got left is Jum'ah and Jama'ah. So praying Salatul Jum'ah and praying in Jama'ah. So we'll finish that and inshallah have a Q&A where you can ask anything about prayer. And once we finish that, we'll inshallah bring or begin the section on zakat. So inshallah, Ali, we're on verses 159 to 162. So he reads the translation, inshallah.
So 159. The Salat of Jum'ah following the khutbah is obligatory in towns and settlements. In Jami Mosque, it is obligatory for the resident without a valid excuse who is free and who lives nearby, that is within 3 miles, and who is male. And if, however, other than these, persons who are under an obligation to perform it, then it is accepted of them and counts instead of dhuhr. Indeed, it is recommended, and when the call is made, one must make haste to it. It is sunnah to make a ghusl and to make it immediately before leaving for the mosque. It is recommended to set out in the midday heat, to be well groomed and neat.
Welcome, sir.
Have you started?
We're starting just now.
Oh, cool.
Do you need a cushion?
No, it's not.
You sure?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, as usual, we're going through the commentary of Sidi Mayara, and it's the minor commentary. Sidi Ibn Ashir, he's laid down the obligations for us, but before we begin, I'll give you like an introduction from myself. Now, you know, the prayer itself, it's individual, Fard al-Ain, Fard al-Kifaya, and then you know you pray it individually and you pray it in Jama'ah. Yeah. Now, if it's amazing that you know psychology now, you know, in the last is it 100 years in the West, it's become a science in itself. It's fully developed, and the Prophet ﷺ, you know, made sure that his community wouldn't have these, you know, especially, you know, depression and you know, a lot of the mental illnesses, because what the lawgiver did, he made sure that, you know, because the whole idea of the deen is that you live in community, so 5 times a day you pray in congregation. So you get out of the house, yeah. So it's not just the men, the women as well. You get them out of the house. You're meeting each other, yeah. So one of the best, you know, cures for depression is actually meeting people and talking to people, yeah. So out of the house in Jama'ah, then once a week you leave your locality. Because you know the local mosque, the prayer in Jama'ah is in your locality, and then the Friday prayer is where the whole town should gathers. So would get them to meet, yeah, and then once or twice a year, getting, you know, the whole city together. You know, the two Eidain. It's amazing, you know, how, if you look at it as social planning, it's amazing how, you know, the Prophet ﷺ planned it. Now, there are certain conditions that need to be met for gathering in prayer. We've already covered, the individual prayer, praying it on your own. So what we're going to do today is the conditions that are attached, especially for Jummah. There are 5 main ones that the author has highlighted. We're going to go through those. Now, if those conditions are met, the Friday prayer will happen. If they are not met, the Friday prayer won't happen. But the noon prayer will happen. Then there are certain conditions that need to be met for the one leading the prayer. There are 30 mainly conditions, and we'll go through those. And then for Jummah, there are certain conditions for specifically for the one leading Jummah. And then because Jummah prayer is shortened from 4 rakats to 2, and there are 2 khutbahs, we'll talk inshallah about the khutbah, what the khutbah is, what language it has to be, what are the minimum requirements, what can you get away with and what you can't, who it is an obligation on and who it's not an obligation on. Now there are difference of opinion. Does Salatul Jummah stand on its own as a prayer in its own right, or is it a badal, in place of Salatul Dhuhr? Now it's to this day we haven't worked that one out yet. In Cairo, I know of being told of certain Jamaats that happen. There's a Jamaat for Salatul Jummah, and right after there's a Jamaat for Salatul Dhuhr. Because we haven't worked it out yet. But then the whole thing from which we're not going to cover is it valid? Jummah, because the Jummah prayer, the Imam who leads it, he is authorized to lead it by the authority itself. So who authorizes our Imams to lead, and are they valid Jummah prayer in itself? That's one of the reasons why in Cairo it happens. Because we're not going to cover that one, I'll just give you rule of thumb. With Malikis we don't have that issue. Because if the Imam is there, the certain amount of people are there, your prayer is valid. You don't need to worry, inshallah. It cannot happen before Dhuhr, Salatul Jummah, because that's the point that we're going to cover first. Salat, its time, the khutbah cannot be given before midday has begun, the zawal or has begun. Now in Hanbali fiqh is a valid opinion. So if you end up praying behind a Hanbali Imam and he begins the khutbah before that, it's valid according to us. If a Maliki Imam or a Hanafi Imam was to do it, we wouldn't. But for Hanbalis, it's a valid position. If a Maliki Imam does begin the khutbah before Zawal, he will have to repeat the khutbah, because can we pray Salatul Dhuhr now? Why not? No, the time has not begun. It's simple as that. Because the time has not begun, the obligation is not there. So if you pray it before the time has begun, you will always have to repeat it.
Is it restricted to Dhuhr time? Can you get through to Asr? Or is it just between the...
What, for Salatul Dhuhr? I mean Salatul Jum'ah.
Yeah.
Asr would have begun then, wouldn't it? There is an opinion, yeah, but because we're sticking with this text and that's the mashhur opinion, the well-known opinion, Asr would have begun. There is, the opinion that if one rak'ah, because do you remember? I know we're going to do it afterwards, but a quick question: do you remember the times of prayer that we covered? The ikhtiyari time and the daruri times. Do you remember? So, what's the last time of the daruri time of Dhuhr?
Maghrib.
No, Maghrib. Yeah. So technically, if there's one rak'ah, you can pray before sunset. It could be done. Yeah. It could be done. Okay. Now, Salatul Jum'ah, like other prayers, it has conditions of obligation and conditions of ada. The only way I can translate تكلم العربية؟
نعم.
ما المعنى أداء في الإنجليزية؟ أداء.
الأداء. To do the action, to perform.
To do the action, to perform it. Yeah. So conditions of obligation and conditions of performance or praying it. Yeah. Now, there aren't that many differences between them, but what we're going to do first is cover the 5 conditions of performance, and then we'll cover the conditions of obligation. Yeah. So the first condition of ada for Salatul Jum'ah is that there needs to be al-istitan, a permanent settlement, a habitation, permanent. Yeah.
This is conditions of action here.
Yeah, conditions of action or performance of doing the act. Now, this needs to be, not a nomadic settlement that tents and you can pick it up and move. It needs to be a permanent, a built. So whatever people are using to build, like in this country, we use bricks and mortar. In other parts of the world they'll use timber. Other parts of the world they'll use mud, but it needs to be permanent of that. Does that make sense?
So the word with istiqamah?
Istiqam.
Istiqam.
Yeah.
Istiqam or
Istiqam. Alif Sin Ta Ya Ta Alif Nun.
Istitan.
Yeah, al-istitan. Yeah, al-istitan. So, a permanent habitation, a permanent settlement. The buildings need to be built of whatever. So it needs to be a permanent settlement. Not it can be a hamlet here, a hamlet there, but together it will make a settlement. We are not talking about a town itself. Does anybody know how Medina looked at the time of the Prophet ﷺ? Any idea? There were each tribe had their own settlement, and together it made up Yathrib. Then it became al-Madinah al-Munawwara. But in their own land, each tribe would have their al-istitan. Does that? Yeah. Now, Kilburn, I don't know how big it is, but this would be an istatam.
It's like a borough. Everybody has each.
No, but now it's begun. But historically, Kilburn was a town in itself. Then it got brought into, became part of London. Okay.
For a traveller,
we're going to cover the traveller. Yeah. Now, people need to be resident in this habitation as well. Not only there needs to be a habitation, but there needs to be people resident. So it should be a place that's never, empty of people. Now the second condition is that of a khutbah. And it has to be before the salat. Now, if the imam is ignorant and he prays the prayer first and then does a khutbah, by the way, do you know if this has ever happened? No?
Can you say that again? Where the person has prayed
and then done the khutbah.
No.
If an imam is ignorant, he does this, you just repeat the prayer again. Yeah. By the way, it has happened. I'm not going to bore you with the history, but we had one ruler. He did it, and then he prayed, and then did the khutbah, and then there was a Sahabi Abu Sayyid al-Khudri. He says, "Just get up and pray." Okay. Now, this khutbah in Arabic, the definition of the khutbah needs to be what an Arab would define as a khutbah. Yeah. So the minimum would be that you say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa aqibatul muttaqeen. Yeah. So it needs three. There are three elements in khutbah. Minimum is that there's praise of God, there's prayers on the Prophet, and there's admonishment to the congregation.
That makes it a khutbah.
That would be, the minimum that's required.
Could you repeat that, please? Sorry.
Okay. The minimum of a khutbah needs to be what an Arab would say, that this is a khutbah. What I said, an Arab wouldn't say that's a khutbah, but linguistically it would, suffice. Yeah, that there's praise of the Prophet, there's praise of God, there's prayer on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then you admonish people to do good, and you give them don't there's this rule of thumb that Imam Nawawi laid down, and everyone since says that frighten them, frighten the people so they do good. No,
because I've got Juma happens.
Is that what happens?
And they just, brother, you are this, brother, you are that. I'm just like, calm down.
Yeah, it's a 1,000-year tradition. That's what happens. Yeah. Yeah, but no. What you do, there's supposed to be a balance.
So, is it not the concept of targhib or tarhib?
Tabshir wa tanzir.
No, yes.
Yeah, yes. that you tell them to do good, but you stop them from doing bad. But what happens is that what I've been taught is talk to people about love, because what you find is that when you that is more in line with what the Prophet ﷺ advised. He says, Bashiru, Bashiru wa la tunaffiru. What's the hadith? Give them good tidings. Don't frighten them away. And when you're always talking about hell and the fire, and you're going to get punished, people end up with psychotic and mental issues.
Absolutely.
But when you teach them about love, it's the punishment is real, but God's not going to punish you for everything that you've done. It's like nothing to do with this, just me. Can you imagine if God brought us to account for everything that we've done? I know I'll go to the other place. I don't know about anybody else. But I know I'm not going to. I'm not saying I'm not going to go there, but I know that God is not going to bring me to account for everything that I've done. Because we were talking about the Aqidah. The Aqidah of the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah is that you're going to end up whatever you end up by the fadl of Allah, by the grace of God, that He's going to put you where He wants to put you. Not that He's going to bring you to account for everything. Oh, you've done that much bad, so okay, you're going to burn for this now. So you've done this much good, so okay, we'll put you in the good place for this. No, God will put you where He wants to put you, because that's His favour to you. There's this it's actually based on a hadith. I won't take too long. It's a really amazing story that there was this man who was before a community before the community of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet told this story, but I can't remember the exact words. These are just my understanding of it. So usually the story is that it was from the Bani Israel, from the Jewish community, and there was this shopkeeper. He had two children. He reached 40. He had his children married. He divided his wealth, and he said, "Look, for 40 years, I've looked after the family. I've provided for you. Now here it is. You look after yourself. I'm going to take myself to this cave and put it right with God." So he found a cave where there was a small, spring bubbling away, and there were some fruit trees outside. They say it was a pomegranate tree. So for 40 years he worshipped God, single-mindedly, and he fed himself. He drank the spring water, ate the fruit, and for 40 years that's what he did. So when the 40 years finished, he died. Now, when he died, he found himself in front of the gates of the garden, of heaven, and this voice booms out, "Enter through my favour, enter the garden." And but I worshipped you for 40 years. Shouldn't I get something better than this? I want, for what I've done. I want to be rewarded for what I've done. So when that thought goes through his mind, he finds himself on a conveyor belt about 1,000 miles away from the other place, and he's being pulled towards it. and he's getting closer, so it's getting hotter, and he's sweating like anything, and his throat is getting parched, and this thought comes through his mind: I could do with a glass of water. So when that thought comes through his mind, this hand pops out with, you know, when you have really cold water and the drops are, coming down. So his hand comes out, cold water. So he goes for it. Voice says, 40 years of worship. No, that's not. So when he says no, hand disappears, he's being pulled further and further. This happens 3 times. So his throat now is so parched, he can't even, swallow the saliva. And I could do with that glass of water. Hand comes out with the glass, and he goes for the glass, and the voice says 40 years of worship. So he exchanges 40 years of worship for a glass of water. And once he goes for it, he finds himself in front of the gates of heaven again, and the voice says, enter through my mercy. And head bowed he enters. The thing is, we can't, what we're doing, we can't repay for what God is doing for us. So our actions, be they good or bad, in the scale of things, they're nothing. They're nothing. Anyway, the khutbah, going back to the khutbah should have, let's go over again. Praise of God, blessings on the Prophet. There should be, advice, to do good, keep away from bad. If a portion of the Quran is read, that is even better, which incorporates all this. Now, it's an obligation that this, khutbah is an obligation, it's a wujub. You sit, before it and after it. It's done standing. It has to be in Arabic.
The whole thing in Arabic, or just part of it in Arabic?
The khutbah has to be in Arabic. Now, we've got, two understandings. There's an understanding, it's not textually based, it's scholarly opinion, scholarly understanding. That, because Salatul Dhuhr is 4 rak'ats, the 2 khutbahs take the place of the 2 rak'ats. Yeah? So, is there any obligation, obligatory prayer that we pray in other than Arabic? Is there any fard prayer that we pray in other than Arabic? So that's one understanding. That because, it's obligatory ibadah, and there's this scholarly understanding that, it takes the place of 2 rak'ats, then it has to be in Arabic. Just as, every fard prayer is in Arabic. The other understanding is what is, the purpose of the khutbah. If the purpose of the khutbah is ibadah, then it has to be in Arabic. Yeah? If the purpose of the khutbah is, to teach people, to make people aware, Yeah? Then the question is, does it still have to be in Arabic? The mashhur of the madhab of Imam Malik radhiallahu anhu, it has to be in Arabic. You find that, Sidi Khalil and all the others, but even the commentators, they say that, if you don't, if the congregation doesn't know Arabic, they should learn Arabic. Yeah? Now, there is, an opinion by Ibn Sauda. Ibn Sauda, he has a commentary on Sidi Khalil. It's called Ta'ala al-Amani. Now, he says that, what does it say? إن المقصود من الخطبة الوعظ والإنذار لا تعبد باللفظ العربي. Now, that's an opinion that, gives us, in our situation, that we can actually do it in another language. So how it happens is that, the khutbah still has to be in Arabic. There's a chunk, there's a khutbah that's transmitted from the Prophet ﷺ. Whenever he would do khutbah, he would begin his khutbah, usually khutbahs begin like this, Inna alhamdulillahi nasta'inuhu nastaghfiruh, to the end. And then you can, do it in English or whatever language. And then when you about to finish, then you do, a chunk in Arabic as well. So it's sandwiched. And then again, for the second khutbah, it's still sandwiched.
Maybe it's about to come. Can you talk about the two khutbahs, like the relationship between? I've never understood, because I don't understand properly what's being said.
Okay.
They stand up, they speak, they sit down. Stand up, they speak, they sit down. Is it the same message continuous, or have we got two different messages in the two khutbahs? Or
Well, the two khutbahs, they're supposed to teach us about the deen, about what's happening, especially there's usually a theme that's going through. It's like a sermon. They're two sermons
in two parts.
In two parts, and there's a break for the speaker to have a break in between.
So, for sake of argument, if the tahmeed was in one and the salawat was in
No,
the second,
no.
So both have to fulfill.
No,
all the
both
conditions.
have to. So you always, when you begin, you praise God, you praise the Prophet, and praise of the Prophet. Then you can begin your talk. Yeah. Then, before you finish, you tell people to, seek forgiveness from God and so on. Then you sit and take a break. Then you begin again.
And repeat the same.
No, don't repeat it. You carry on from where you left off. Do you understand? You're literally taking a break.
Right.
Some khutbahs have it separate.
Huh?
Sometimes have a complete different thing. Like the first one we talk about something, second one we talk about something else.
It's up to the speaker.
So there's no obligation.
There's no obligation. The obligation is that, there's a minimum that needs to be done.
And that minimum needs to be in the first khutbah. And the second khutbah is a continuation of the admonishment. I'm trying to work out.
When you're a teacher,
Yeah.
so there's a message that you need to give to your class.
Yeah.
So what you do is you're talking for 20 minutes. So you talk for 10 minutes, then take a breather, and then you carry on. And because you've taken a break, you begin again. Quickly just praise God, bless the Prophet, and then just carry on where you left off.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah? And then when you're about to finish, you supplicate for the congregation. Yeah? And you know, it was something that Mahmoud was telling me, you know, that happened this Friday, that, you know, they mention, you know, certain names of the companions. With us, that's a bid'ah. You don't mention no names of no rulers. Yeah, these are things that have been introduced that have no place. It's like, you know, when you are praying, do you pray for your rulers?
Rulers or Sahaba?
Huh?
Rulers and Sahaba?
Yeah, the Sahaba that are mentioned were rulers.
I see.
If you mentioned God bless all the companions and the followers, that's done. Yeah. If you want to, you know, make a dua for the rulers, the Sheikh of my Sheikh used to say that, you know, when the scholars are corrected, the masses are corrected. Yeah. So if you want to make dua for the scholars, yeah. But the thing is, if you want to make it a general dua, don't make it a, you know, the rule of when you're supplicating to God anyway, don't be specific, be general, because general stands a greater chance of being accepted than specifics.
So things like I mean, I've never heard of this happen, but it could. If you, as the Jews, pray for the Queen,
Yeah.
we wouldn't do that.
We don't pray in the khutbah. We don't pray for no ruler.
So within the khutbah.
Within the khutbah.
Yeah.
Within the khutbah, if you want to pray for the companions, it's like, you know, in the tashahhud that we pray for ikhwanina alladhina sabaquna bil iman. Like, you know, our brothers who have gone preceded us before in iman. That includes everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You were beholden to the Prophet and the first community, so you pray on the Prophet and all the descendants, all his descendants, all his companions, rather than specifying certain ones. Because when you specify certain ones, because you name some, you're making certain people happy, and you're not mentioning others, you're hurting others. Yeah. When you don't mention any, you mention all, everyone's happy. Yes, I will take her and then go.
Okay, just about the lineup of what we're doing, because I might be confused. We were doing conditions of the actions, and then
Well, conditions of the actions, where we've done the first one,
Yes.
which was the place,
the permanent settlement.
permanent settlement.
And then-
Second condition has to be khutbah. There's two khutbahs. Yeah, first one, second one. Yeah, they have to be in Arabic. There's a certain things that have to be included, which you praise God, you pray upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you give people good tidings. I mean, advise them to do good, ask, you know, admonish them from doing bad. Read a portion of the Quran, which can include all of that.
And this is within both khutbahs.
Both khutbahs, but at the final khutbah, you usually supplicate for the whole congregation and all the Muslims. Yeah, so we bless the Prophet, we bless his descendants, we bless his companions, and all that, rather than specifying anyone. I know in Hanafi fiqh, they say it's mustahab, you know, recommended, that, you know, you mention the Khulafa Rashidin.
Okay.
Yeah? Now the Khulafa Rashidin are 5, they're not 4. Not 4 Khulafa Rashidin, they're 5. Yeah? They're 5. Imam Hassan. That's it. After him, Khulafa Rashid are finished, and that's what the Prophet ﷺ prophesied. For 30 years there would be Khilafah Rashida, and Imam Jalaluddin Suyuti even, you know, told us the exact day it happened. And then there would be monarchy, good monarchy, bad monarchy, tyrants, and the whole lot. something that is very specific for the Malikiya. We find that in this country, because we're majority of the mosques and imams are Hanafi, and then they get divided into if they're Brelvi or Deobandi Hanafis. Now, have you seen how the Brelvis sit at Jummah? Yeah, they sit, and then for the second khutbah they will open their head bowed. Yeah, no. You look at the Imam. You have to look at the Imam. You have to, he's talking to you, so pay attention. As simple as that. He's talking to you, so pay attention. Look at him. Because the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, it used to be, like a crescent around the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like now we go in, the safs are straight. No, they used to be round. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was their focus. Can you picture that? Yeah. Now that's what it's Jummah is supposed to be. The Imam is supposed to, be teaching us, and we're supposed to be, looking at him. Are we okay with the khutbah, or is there any questions about the khutbah? Yeah? Okay. Has to be in Arabic. That's the mashhur opinion. If you take the minor opinion, then they permit it. You sandwich it. Otherwise, yeah. Yes.
Is there a requirement to see the Imam when the Imam is addressing you as a congregation?
That's why you're supposed to be looking at him.
If the women are separate, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes we're squashed in the back somewhere behind a wall.
Okay.
Microphone relay or...
And you actually have big mosque men are in different rooms as well.
What I've noticed is certain, good practices. They put up screens now for the women's section, which is really good. If they don't have them, you should demand them. So you can actually see.
Is it enough? So do we have to see the Imam?
You don't have to, but you got to listen to the Imam. Yeah.
Just one last because most of the Jummahs I've heard, they usually have the salawat at the end. Is that necessary?
What you mean?
As in, so
in the khutbah.
In the khutbah, the second khutbah will always have salawat in the end. And
what you mean salawat?
Blessings upon the Prophet.
Yeah, they usually, because when the ayah, Inna Allahu wa malaikatahu, I won't read it to the end. When that is recited at the end, you're obliged to send blessings on him. By the way, you don't start responding. When the Imam makes the dua, don't start saying Ameen. Those are things that were never done. Those are new things. If you say it in your heart, that's fine. As long as your lips don't move, your tongue moves, that's fine. Yes?
Sorry, I'm attending prayers where the khutbah is entirely in English. Does that affect the validity of the Friday prayer?
It's not sandwiched. There's no Arabic at all. It's not valid. According to us, it's not valid.
The prayer won't be valid, the Friday prayer?
No, it won't. The khutbah is not valid.
Does that affect the prayer?
Yes.
The Friday prayer?
Yeah. Because the khutbah has to be in Arabic. If the khutbah is sandwiched, there's Arabic at the beginning and the end of both khutbahs, and English in between, or whatever language it is in between, that will be fine. But to have it totally in English, according to the school of Medina, it's invalid. It invalidates it.
Any khutbah would have Arabic because we need to do the hamd and No, it's just
I don't know. It's just the saying all in English at all.
The main part of it is
No, did you begin in English? I mean, did you begin in Arabic?
the introduction was slightly in Arabic, but it wasn't.
Yeah. So if the beginning is in Arabic and the end is in Arabic, it's fine.
So the actual speech doesn't have to be in Arabic.
Ideally, it should be. Yeah, but because the country that we live in, majority of people don't understand, so there is that license given.
Because if you attend the Central Mosque, they'll do the speech in Arabic and then in English. But where I tend to go, it's mainly it's in English, but then there's the introduction, a few words at the beginning, and then
At the end as well.
at the end,
Yeah.
But it's not khutbah. That, you know what I mean? It's not the
So you know,
message is in English.
no, that's what we were covering. That if the minimum is done. So if there's hamd and there's salawat, and there's like Subhana Rabbika Rabbil Izzati Amma Yasifun at the end, it would be fine. It would be fine, inshallah. Yes,
Is there a minimum number of attendees to
we're
carry
going to
out?
come to that.
Okay.
We will come to that. We will. Is there on the khutbah? Yeah. So standing, sit, stand.
Is there any dispensation for an imam who can't stand? If he can't stand, he's not valid to be an imam.
We're going to come to
Okay.
the conditions of the imam. If he can't stand, how is he going to lead the prayer? We'll come to it. Okay, let's move on. So the third condition of ada is the jami', al-jami'. Yeah, has to be in a mosque. I think the English will be like a cathedral mosque. But cathedral's not a mosque, is it?
Cathedral has a throne on which the bishop sits.
Is it?
Yeah.
No. But mosque meaning, it's a big mosque where people can gather. Now, this condition is that, it has to be specifically built as mosque. Yeah? Now, that does not mean it needs to have a dome and a minaret.
It can't be a Zawiya.
Of course it can.
So you can pray Jummah at Zawiya.
Of course you can. But it has to be something which would be known that this is a jami'. Yeah? It's like, London's too, it's like Kilburn's a town itself, so Kilburn should have its own jami', where all of Kilburn comes and prays.
So churches, sometimes when, because we've done this before, Jummahs that happen in churches.
Say it again?
Jummahs that happen in churches.
Why not?
But we can do that. There's no problem with that.
If it's not if it's not used as a church.
No, it is. They use the hall in the church, so they would cover up Jesus and put a cloth over him. It's so weird. You put a cloth over him and you're just like,
What,
where
over
are
the cross?
Muslim from? You can't do that.
No, look, the jami'. Let me tell you what the text says, and we'll come to your specific. The jami' is supposed to be built how local buildings are built. Local build. Does it specifically, do you know what a mosque, the mosque of the Prophet ﷺ, how it was built? Does anybody know?
You told us the mud. So
No, there was nothing on the floor. But as a building, what did it look
They didn't
like?
have much, it was just a fence basically. It was inside.
No, it was 4 walls.
Yeah, it was open,
Yeah.
so.
4 walls, pillars, and a roof. That was it. It's literally, it actually had 3 entrances. 3. No. Forget about it. It had 3 doors. It had 3 entrances. Yeah. One got closed because the Qibla changed. So there was 2. And it did not have a dome. It did not have a minaret. By the way, does anybody know where we got the dome from? No? What's the biggest dome in the world? Where is the biggest dome in the world?
It's, I think, is it the church one? I think.
Yeah, which church?
The one in Rome. What is it called?
St. Peter?
Vatican?
I think so. No, the Vatican.
No.
Cordoba's one. Is it the Cordoba's one?
No. It's in Istanbul. The Hagia Sophia.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the biggest dome. Not built by Muslims, built by the Byzantians. It used to be a church, and there was a reason for the domes. The domes actually trap air. In hot climate, the domes are ideal. The air goes in, it cools the place down, and it also echoes. So for acoustics, is that the word?
Acoustic.
Say it again.
Acoustic.
There you go. That word. It's really good. So they didn't have microphones, so everyone could hear the Imam. There's actually a mosque in Pakistan which has 99 domes.
Which one?
It has 99. Tata.
Yeah.
In Sindh.
Yeah.
And where the Imam, where the mihrab is, when the Imam speaks, the whole mosque can hear it. It's just that, even in Isfahan, there's one.
Isfahan?
In Isfahan, if you stand in the middle under the dome, everywhere in the mosque can hear it.
I think that one, the one in Islamabad, is designed like that as well.
No.
The triangle, for that reason.
No. But Allah Alam. But again, domes are not, Muslim specific. The minarets, again, they developed. There was a reason for them. Yeah, there was a reason for them because the Muadhin gave them. In this country, there is no need for a dome or a minaret. I would love someone, to design an English mosque.
I think the studio that when that was built, it's just plain. There's no.
Where?
There's no. I'll find out what the address is. Not in London.
That's the Norwich Mosque.
No, Norwich Mosque is a chapel. It's converted. It's a converted chapel.
There's a mosque near Gatwick, which is you wouldn't think it. You wouldn't know there's a masjid if you didn't go inside the building.
Okay. But the thing is, people need to come up with English or Scottish or Welsh mosques that are in line with the local architecture, and they don't stand out like a sore thumb.
A green sore thumb.
Huh?
A green sore thumb usually.
Yeah.
With a green band. Right?
Yeah. Even the green colour. Do you know that's not Islamic, by the way?
I wanted to ask you about that actually, yeah.
Do you know where we got that one from?
Where?
Well, when you get time, ask Sheikh Google what colour the Saracen, the Sassanid Empire, their colour. The Persian Empire their colour was green.
So it wasn't the Prophet's favourite colour?
You know what the colour of the Quraysh was?
White?
Black.
Oh.
But the favourite colour of the Prophet ﷺ is
was
white.
But the colour of the Quraysh was black. Do you know why it was black? Huh? It's expensive.
Ooh.
No, because to dye, anything in those days was expensive.
And it fades quick in the sun as well.
Yes.
You must have to keep redoing
Yes.
if you're really on
Yeah,
top of your
but you know this black thing that the Shia and Sunni, especially the clergy from India, South Asian, our Maulanas wear black, and the Shia wear black. You know where that's from? That's actually the color of the civil servants of the Abbasids. You know how the Shia imams wear their turbans, and the dress is Abbasid civil service dress. That's how they dressed, and they've kept it. There's a really amazing incident. One of the students of Ibn al-Qasim, the student of Imam Malik, his name's Ibn Maskeen. He was actually Mahmud. He was one of the governors of Cairo. Ibn Maskeen, his name was, and he was paralyzed in his legs. So they used to put him on a donkey, and he would go into the mosque, and he was the judge, and he was in charge of Fustat at that time, and he built the drainage and everything. And you know what he did? He stopped the adhans. The ways they're given now. I don't want to be rude, but we call it music. The way the adhans are given.
Is it how it's elongated?
It's pure music.
Melodic.
It's very. Yeah, Ibn al-Qasim stopped them. He says no. And not his name was Ibn Maskeen, but he was ordered, because he was a civil servant, to wear black. And he wouldn't wear it. He said, look, did the Prophet ﷺ order them? Did any of the Sahaba specifically order their civil servants to wear black? Did they, and he was beaten. And then, because the Abbasid king was coming to Cairo, everyone's heard of Imam Tahawi, the Aqidah Imam. Yeah. He was Egyptian as well. So he went to Ibn Maskeen. He says, I have a riwayah that Imam Malik used to wear black and white striped Yemeni cloth. He says, but that's not black, is it? But he says it has black. He says, okay, I'll wear that.
That's right.
Yeah, but that's not English, is it?
They're trying.
Yeah, it's not English.
You've seen the plans for the Cambridge Mosque?
I've seen that's more in line with English.
Cambridge.
Yeah.
They're not quite getting there. It's a bit too.
It's too cathedraly. It's very.
It's supposed to evoke, among other things, King's College Chapel.
Oh right. Okay. Okay. Yeah. But the thing is that the Jami is supposed to be built with local architecture, local thing in line, how mosques are built. And I would encourage anyone to, when they have time, go to Spain, see how the mosques were there, or go to Fez. You can't tell the mosques from the outside, apart from the minaret. If the minaret's not there, you can't tell it. When you go inside, that's when it opens up. And that's how the Prophet ﷺ's mosque was. From outside, it was just four. But when you went inside, it just... Okay. It doesn't have to be a permanent structure. Does it need to have a roof or not? But it's supposed to be something that gets known as a jami. It's not conditional that the 5 prayers established there.
Shit. At the start you said permanent settlement. And one of the first points is the first point, permanent settlement. Is that different from permanent structure? What you just said right now? Are they two different things?
No, this is, we're talking about a jamia, a permanent building, a building. Yeah. For praying.
Oh, sorry.
For praying. Yeah. Because there's difference of opinion, does 5 prayers need to be established in that building or not? Because it ends up being too big, because it's just for Jummah. Yeah. There's khilaf. There's different. Yeah. Yes or no? It doesn't matter. So if it is established, alhamdulillah. If it is not, it's alhamdulillah. Now, once, because majority of the mosques in the Muslim world, they overflow. So if they flow onto the street, in Birmingham actually, in the summer, I think in Regent's Park as well, they overflow onto the pavement. Yeah. So if playing on the pavement's fine. Praying on the road is fine. This thing of you find in none of the Khulafa Rashideen's time, Jummah only used to happen once. In the Medinas, it was only one. Afterwards, once the population started expanding. Does it God, does it invalidate the Jummah of one after the other? Because in Shafi fiqh, Jummah can only happen in one mosque. Because people talk about bid'at. This is something that we all agree on. People who say that there's no such thing as bid'ah, a good bid'ah or bad bid'ah. Then there shouldn't be more than one Jummah in any town. To have more than one Jummah is a bid'ah. Now, I don't think there's anything else about the mosque that we need to cover. Is there anything else that people can think of?
I heard it said it has to be established, like the Day of Judgment or something. It has
What?
to be. The mosque has to be. I understood this to be a Maliki position, but I can't remember who told me it. It has to be permanent. It will never be other than a mosque, or it's not a Jamia mosque. Sounds like that's wrong.
No, if something is established as a mosque, it has to be waqfan lillahi. It can't be, in anyone's name. It can't be in an individual's name. It can't be, land that is usurped, taken by force, stolen. It has to be, permanent trust. Because waqfan lillahi is a trust in the name of God. So it's a mosque for perpetually. It does get silly. I don't know if it I know it happens in Birmingham, so it happens everywhere else. That all the local corner mosques have Jummah. Yeah, And where I come from in Pakistan, we don't have, the locality only has one Jummah. So, Kilburn, because, the population is such that they will agree to close the small mosques, but the big mosques will have Jummah. And then they will alternate, because they rely on the donations to pay the imam, so they will alternate. We can't in Birmingham agree to share the donations, because the mosque they just won't have it. So ideally, the main area mosque should have Jummah, and the other thing is that the speaker changes as well, so you have a different flavour. Okay, I know Dohar has begun, but if we can finish the next point, and then we'll break for Dohar, and then we'll carry on afterwards.
So 164?
No, we're still on. We just covered number 3.
Yeah.
Oh, we just covered, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Now, number 4 is the Imam. Now, Ibn Ashir, he's a very famous Imam within the madhab. He says that, this is a condition of performance, but other than him have said it's an obligation, condition of obligation. But anyway, we'll stick with it's a condition of performance for the Imam. Now, he has to be free. He can't be a slave. The Imam has to be free. He has to be resident. Now, he can't be a traveller.
They can't have like a visiting scholar.
No. This is clear cut. This is where people need to fear God. If Jummah is not valid upon the person, how can he lead Jummah? And within all the madhabs, we all agree that a musafir, Jummah is not an obligation upon him. It's like no one will pray a fard prayer behind a child. Yeah. Why? Because it's not an obligation upon the child. Now, if the resident Imam comes and makes the intention to stay for 4 days and stays, rather than making the intention, then he will be permitted.
So he has to both intend
and stay 4 days more.
Has to read it out.
Pardon?
Could you just repeat that? Just flown out my. What you just said.
No, the Imam, he has to be free resident. Behind it's not correct to pray Jummah behind a traveller unless he intends to stay 4 days or more. If he intends it, then Jummah becomes necessary upon him, because then he follows the conditions of residence.
And so he only needs to intend to stay?
No, he needs to stay as well.
So on his 5th day you could follow him?
No, if he makes the intention, because if you're a traveller,
yeah,
and you intend to stay somewhere for 4 days, you start praying full prayers. You only shorten when you're travelling. So when you're resident, because you're resident now, okay, you pray Jummah.
It's 4 days, yeah?
Yeah, 4 days. For us, it's 4 days.
So if you're travelling and you're planning on staying somewhere for more than 4 days, you don't shorten your prayers, you just pray your normal prayers.
Yeah.
Like on the first day.
Yeah.
You get there because you know you're going to be.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. That's the because we're going to cover, the detailed requirements for the Imam in Jummah. These are the only, conditions for Salatul Jummah for the Imam. Inshallah. The next point is the fifth point, because it's going to lead us somewhere else. We'll stop and pray Dhuhr. Yeah, on a Sunday. I will carry on, inshallah. Everybody got wudu?